On the line, the Chief Executive of the AFL, Andrew Demetriou. Good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Well, what is acceptable abuse of a player? Is any abuse acceptable?
Oh, look, Neil, I think for a long time in our game, one of the great things is that people come along as a great meeting place from all walks of life, and they sit next to each other regardless of what team they bag for, and they enjoy a lot of banter, particularly some mild and sometimes funny abuse of players and umpires, and I think that's acceptable, and it should always be, and we should encourage that because it's one of the great unique features of our game. But what we've seen this year, for the first time in a long time now, we've started to see elements creeping into abuse, which involves probably a bit more racial and religious vilification, some quite serious abuse. We've had some complaints this year that haven't come across my desk for a long time, and there's no place for it now at our game, and there's certainly no place for it in society.
What sort of things happening? What is being done or said?
Oh, I think there's some pretty vicious things said now. I can't really go into them on radio, but we've had reports from players about abuse from over the fence. We've had a couple of issues recently in the last couple of weeks about racial abuse from supporters. And interestingly enough, Neil, it's not the security or police that are turning on the people, it's other supporters. Supporters who are reporting these things, turning on people, writing to us about, they take their families along. We do have a large number of women and children that go to our games. And, people just don't want it. They don't want to hear it. They don't like it. And we need to get back to removing it from the game.
And the players are objecting to it as well, are they?
Yes, they did. In fact, when we had our season's launch, we, on an annual basis, have a lunch with all the captains. This issue was actually raised. It was actually raised by a couple of captains about some of the abuse that they'd experienced last year. And to be quite frank, we weren't aware of it.
But are they being a bit... sure, racial abuse, it's pretty obvious what lines you don't cross. Are they being a bit sensitive? If some thug drops one of my poor innocent Melbourne boys behind the play, I'm obviously going to be a bit grumpy with that thug. Now, provided I don't racially or religiously vilify him, it's all right to say you're a thug or something, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, and I can tell you our players absolutely understand that they're fair game for that sort of thing, and that's not what they're talking about. As I said, for the first time, and I really can't go into details on radio, but for the first time, the sorts of things that are being said and a couple of incidents that have occurred in the crowd, they haven't happened for a long time now. They are more vicious, they are more hurtful than things that we've previously heard.
I understand you don't want to sub. You're talking about racial things, families, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so how does a spectator know, do you reckon? In the heat of the moment, the passion, as you say, it's a passionate game. How does a spectator really know what the line is?
Well, they certainly must know from the racial and religious vilification perspective.
Yeah.
They must, because we've done such an amazing job as a code and as a society and community in outlawing that sort of activity. So I think they know. I also think they know that you can't cross the line now on gender, which is something else we've raised awareness about. And we've also introduced into our rules for the first time about 3 or 4 years ago, as part of our racial and religious vilification, issues around disability discrimination. So we've added on, gender and disability. And, there are people saying things that they just shouldn't say anymore. They're unacceptable. So
you couldn't say the umpire was blind or something, because that's disability?
Oh, no, Neil, I think that's people understand that that's pretty jocular, but there are far worse and far more hurtful things said, Noel.
Yeah. Well, yeah, what's the idea? The campaign will be from the players, will it? Will you play ads before the game, that sort of thing?
Look, it's an idea that was suggested by Mark Evans, our new General Manager of Football Operations. He's seen it work in the NFL. And why it actually can be powerful, Neil, is when we've used players before to help raise awareness on various issues, they are very influential and the message can have an impact. And I think the idea of getting a couple of players from each club on the scoreboards talking about these sorts of issues and just highlighting them, I think can be effective. And we'll do some more work around it. We're obviously working with the Players Association and, of course, the players themselves. And I think it's got a potential to have some significant impact. I
was out in the ground before the Carlton-Collingwood game with Mick Malthouse. I copped a bit of abuse, of course. You as a player copped abuse. But the sort of stuff you copped, I think we've talked about before, was racial abuse. You were a fat wog or something like that. Did you...
I wasn't fat back then.
I was going to say...
Actually, if you and I walked on the ground together now, we might cop a bit of joint heat.
Was it all right to call somebody fat?
Oh, look, I think back then, Neil, the thing is, the world's changed. People's expectations have changed. Standards have changed. I don't care what anyone says, and you probably know this because you're in the public lights. At the end of the day, expectations of people have changed, and people have all had to modify their lifestyles and what they say compared to what they used to say. And you've only got to see the reaction that can occur, particularly, take, for example, yesterday with Bernie Brooks, who I know to be a very fine person, and he said something wherever he said it about disability in the social media campaign.
Yeah, and he said that it would take money out of his customers' pockets. Yeah,
and which I'm sure he regrets saying that. But you can see, Neil, you can't say.
But he should have been able to say that. Yeah, and it was a reasonable thing to say.
Yeah, but Neil, the reaction today, and you know this, compared to 10, 15 years ago, has changed. You can't say things. You can't say things off the record. You can't say things at a dinner or a lunch because someone will be taping it and they'll play it and it'll be distorted or taken out of context. All of us have got to be very careful, Neil. Even when I come on your program, I've got to be careful what I say in case some editor dices and splices it and takes out 4 words. Who knows?
Well, I hope you wouldn't
be careful.
Don't be too careful.
No, not on 3AW, of course.
No, I don't want you to be too careful, though. But okay, so what you and other players copped in your day now isn't acceptable, is it?
No. I mean, you know that. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
You know that people can't go around. I mean, when I play with a lot of Aboriginal players, I play with the Cracker Brothers and others. I mean, things that were said to those guys on the field is unacceptable today.
Well, do we need more security to enforce it?
No, I don't think we do, Neil. In fact, I told you that the most significant impact at the ground and the people that police this best are the supporters.
And what about...
That is fact.
Okay, fair. And when you ban... I noticed a player was banned this week by the courts. Has the AFL actually banned anybody from going to a game?
Yes, we banned... And in my time, I can think of 2 occasions.
And how do you enforce that? How do you make sure they don't get in?
Well, you've got to obviously advise the venues. It's very hard to enforce, Neil, and you actually are expecting a bit of honour. There was one particular person who got banned for, I think, 12 months who took it upon himself to make sure that he wouldn't go to the football because he regretted what he did. But it is hard to police. But, there are things now with surveillance and cameras and membership numbers. I mean, if you're using a card to get in, you can check that through scanning. There are mechanisms, but it is difficult.
Okay, a couple of other quick things. Is it right you ran Kia to convince them to stay with Essendon as a sponsor?
No, I ran Kia, but I didn't convince them to stay with Essendon as a sponsor because we didn't get into a dialogue about whether they were staying or not. I mean, my assumption is that they are continuing to support Essendon. I rang them because I thought it was important from a code perspective, as we've rung all our other corporate partners, to give them the code's view on this ASADA investigation and the ACC report. I mean, it's incumbent upon us to make sure people are well informed, and as a major sponsor of this football club, I think they needed to hear it from me.
Point being made today in one of the papers too that if Essendon players were using illegal substances, banned substances last year, they're still benefiting from it this year because of the development. Is that an issue? Does that mean that we've got a bigger problem?
Look, no, I'm not going to give a running commentary on the Essendon issue, but what I would say is this. I mean, those are all matters for conjecture and they're all matters for commentary, and they can be ill-informed and they could be not factually correct, and they could be factually correct. What I would say is this. There appears to be a small group, particularly amongst our clubs, who are taking it upon themselves to put about scurrilous innuendo about the fact that the Essendon Football Club has won 5 games and are they getting an advantage. I think this is really unfortunate. I think it's a byproduct of this running commentary, and I don't think it is acceptable. And it just might be that they've got some good players. It just might be that they've got some good tactics. It just might be that their coach is coaching well. They might actually just be playing well. And the sooner some of our clubs, and this is not all, but a small few, stop this sort of scurrilous mongering, the better, because it's not doing anybody any good at all.
So these are clubs who are upset that Essendon's doing so well, and they're spreading stories, are they?
Absolutely they are, Neil. Well, I know that to be fact, and it's got to stop.
Which clubs?
They should just... I'm not going to say that, but what I would say is they should focus on their own club, Neil. There's an investigation ongoing at the moment, which the Essendon Football Club, I should remind people, are fully cooperating with. They came forward, so they're not running away. They are part of this, and they know it's going to take a while, and we need to let it run its course.
Thank you very much for your time. Is it all right to call me a silly old coot?
Oh, well, you are. I mean, I tell you what, Neil, if at your Christmas lunch, if anyone ever recorded that, there'd be half the people that would be offended and it would be in court for the next 3 years.
That's the whole aim. Thank you very much for your time.
All the best. Cheers.
Andrew Demetriou, Chief Executive, AFL.